This week for Tactical Tuesday, we're going to share some tips and tricks on how to set up your night vision helmet. All right, guys, welcome back. This week for Tactical Tuesday, I have David here with me, and we want to share some kind of tips and tricks and some things that we have found to be useful when setting up your night vision helmet. Here with us today, we have our personal bump helmets, and we wanted to share a couple of the things that we have chosen to put on our helmets that we have found to be a worthwhile investment when getting into kind of the whole night vision world. Kind of like last week's video, as we discussed and shared our plate carrier setups, I'm going to let David go ahead and kind of kick things off by sharing his bump helmet here and kind of some of the things that he has found to be useful for it.
Sure. All right. If you watched our previous video on plate carriers, then you probably already know where this might end up. I like lightweight. Again, my spine's destroyed. So lightweight's nice. Obviously adding gear on here is going to make it heavier. So any other places you can cut it, the better. Because of that, I've gone for a pretty lightweight carbon helmet. In fairness, the polymer ones aren't really much different in weight. And it's a lot cheaper. I do like the carbon because it comes with the full bolt-on shroud where you can replace it if you have an issue. It comes with a lot more Velcro and it ships with nicer padding. So that's another added bonus. Had I known when I ordered it before we were carrying these that they were about the same weight, I might have done it different, but either way, I love it now that I have it, so works well. This is an OpScore Fast SF high cut carbon helmet. Because, you know, concise names. Gotta make it easy.
Yes.
But yeah, full OpScore. They're the ones who make the arc rails, which are kind of the industry standard for mounting rails on helmets. There are some other ones out there, but that's what most people seem to build equipment for. And then they're also kind of the ones who develop some of this other stuff too. I guess we'll kind of start, well, I'll start with one of my favorites. The amp arms.
These are...
If you're gonna mount EarPro to your helmet, which I do recommend if you're wearing a helmet, running the strap inside can be kind of uncomfortable if you don't get it perfect. So if possible, I would do that. These amp arms, these are made by OpScore. You do not have to use the amps, which is their own headset. I love them. They are phenomenal. It's a phenomenal headset system, but you can get adapters to make them work with other units as well. But the beauty of these, they do mount in the back. Does a couple things for you. It does free up the front part, which is where most other helmet attachments would mount. It also kind of adds kind of a leverage point for that weight in the rear, which helps if you're running a night vision unit on it, helps kind of counterweight that back a little bit. And then because these are kind of weird in how they are, you can kind of fan them out like Mickey Mouse ears. So if you're getting really hot, you don't need them right now, you're taking a tactical pause, whatever, you can pop these out, let yourself breathe a little bit, works well. But when you crank these in, don't put your finger, they actually hold really tight to the helmet, to your head. I've actually found, even if I don't tighten my suspension system, just the EarPro alone will hold my helmet on. And then you factor that in with a suspension system and a strap, it gets real secure. I mean, no issues whatsoever. The other problem I've found, I have a pretty small head compared to most people. I have tried them where they mount on top, and I can never get them like tight enough up without them hitting the helmet. Even on a high cut, it hits the helmet, and then it either pops them open or pops my helmet up. But yeah, the amp arms, regardless of headset, that would be my first thing I would say about that. Just comfort mainly, and then ease of use. The other nice thing, storage. They do rotate up as well. Pop them in. Now they're not hanging out where they're going to get snagged and get broken off, but you can tuck it in pretty tight, throw it in your bag or whatever, and it's protected pretty well, which is nice.
Yeah.
I see you also have amp arms.
I do. I think, spoiler alert, They are the way to go. I can't even recommend anything else. I think it is well worth every dollar that OpsCore is asking for these things. Just like you mentioned, the fact that it helps push the Ear Pro into your head.
Yeah.
Not uncomfortably so. It just kind of feels like the Ear Pro is kind of hugging your head.
You don't get a migraine from it or anything.
Yeah, not at all, not at all. It's gentle, but
it's firm.
Yeah, it's firm. Yes, it's a very good way to put it. It's nice. You know they're not going anywhere, especially if you pair whatever Ear Pro you have with some good gel cups, and those things kind of just gently kind of pushing that Ear Pro into your head. I've never had them come loose, even while wearing iPro.
Yeah.
In addition to those gel cups and those, I just get a good seal. It's been very, very nice. When you're setting up your bump helmet, that is something you should be budgeting for, are the OpsCore amp arms. There's a couple different ways you can mount up your Ear Pro to that. We'll go over that in a minute when I'm kind of talking about my helmet. But guys, that's something you should definitely be looking into. They are so much more comfortable than pretty much anything else on the market. It's very much worth that price point.
And just to reiterate, you do not have to use OpsCore amps in order to use amp arms.
Right.
I know they're expensive, and that's a problem for most people. They are quite expensive. But I know we've got guys that run them with Howard lights.
I used to. Yeah.
Are one of the best bang for your buck electronic headsets out there. They're not expensive.
Yeah.
Like $50, $60, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, if that.
And they're good quality. So, you have the option to run something like that even with these. They make adapters for pretty much everything.
Yeah, there's good companies like Axle are making kind of like a carbon fiber-like material adapter. So like you mentioned, if you have Howard lights, Walkers, many of the very popular electronic hearing protection that's not super expensive. Axle, there's even a couple honestly knockoff companies that are making adapters to allow you to use the real OpsCore amp arms and then adapt to pretty much your choice of Ear Pro. Thankfully, the market has adapted and come out with a lot of different options for those, and you really should just take a good advantage of that because they're awesome.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
So now we kind of talked about the arms.
Went in depth on that, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna probably talk about them some more just because they are awesome. What else you got going on your helmet here?
I guess so. Kind of starting at the back then, since that's kind of the same proximity to where these are mounted. I am using this is an OpsCore specific counterweight kit. So they make it for their helmets, for their system. So it's Velcro on the back, but it does bolt into the bolts for the rear, the rails, arc rails.
Very clean.
So it's super stable. It's not going to come off. It does Velcro open. The weights are individuals in there, so if it's too much weight, you can pop some out. You can pop some out and put batteries in. You can kind of tailor that for what you need. You might not need all the weight on there, depending on what unit you're using or how well it's balanced on your head. But I like that. It's low profile. I'm not going to shove a bunch of other junk in there anyways because weight. So I like it, and while I like Velcro being bolted in, it's the added sense of security. I know it's not going to go anywhere. And I also use that to help retain my cord for my Ear Pro. So I do run it kind of through. It's just Velcroed in, but it's a loop. And so I can adjust that if need be, but it just keeps that retained so it can't snag on stuff.
Yeah, good cable management.
Yeah.
And then what do you got up here?
So up here I've got a Hellstar. So this is a beacon basically. Just Velcro's on. It's very strong, but it works. They're extremely lightweight, single battery. I can pop this on and off as needed. It comes basically set up, the ones that I like, so it's going to come in a couple modes. So you can do green, you can do red. So if you're out training, LARPing, whatever, laser tag, whatever you want to do. You can use that kind of designate teams or squads or whatever you want. Or if in case of emergency, you can kick this on, people can see it, know where you are. It does have an IR mode though, so if you click this lever back, now when you turn it on, there's IR, so there's constant on, there's strobe, you can do both. So if you are running around with a bunch of guys with night vision, you can do the same thing. You can dedicate, hey, all the team leaders are running strobes, so you know where the teams are, or hey, first squad's gonna be steady on, second squad's flash. You can coordinate a lot of that kind of stuff that way, and only people with night vision can see it. So it's not, you're not compromising your ability to stay undetected that way.
Right.
But super nice, and obviously you don't have to use it. It's certain scenario specific, but.
No, it's awesome. I mean, I know like in different classes I've been to, or different instructors, depending on what they're doing, like you said, having the different color coordination is really huge. You can tell, immediately, okay, that group of guys who are all more or less dressed exactly the same, that's green team, go with them. They're gonna be doing a certain.
Right.
Amber.
Okay. Gee,
You ruined it all.
Did I really?
All right, start over.
We gotta do the all.
We're what, 50 minutes in?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you crap. No, you're
We'll
fine.
just cut this.
I'm just
little
gonna edit
segment
it out. That's not even a big deal.
It's like
A sock on the door.
a sock on the door,
That way I know.
or a tie, or something.
A good rubber band or something.
You guys see me.
Because it's more fun to give you a hard time.
Back at it. So, what we were just talking about, the different color light designators. Depending on the course you're at, depending on how the instructors set up the courses, it can be helpful just to kind of help keep things organized. Like you said, I like the strobe capabilities of this under IR. That's really cool, especially if you're trying to maintain like a lower profile. I just kind of mentioned there's a lot of great courses that are going to teach you, how to use night vision equipment, which is where this kind of equipment outside of just like personal use is going to become very useful and relevant. If you're in the northern Utah, there's like the Tactical Cowboys. Down here you got the Blackout guys.
Yep.
Green Line is another good
Green
one.
Line Tactical,
He
yeah.
travels and offers some good stuff. So
I believe Warrior Poet's still doing some too.
yeah. So depending on where you are in the country,
Tons
there's
more, but
just
few up top.
Yeah, those are the
but,
ones that we're kind of familiar with here. Yeah, so depending on what you're doing, having just a good beacon for safety purposes or instructor purposes is going to be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know here at the shop we've shot some video under nods. We play it in the showroom on TV. But I ran it during that. Not because it was necessary per se, but there's guys that maybe don't have a ton of night vision experience, and it's just an easier way to make sure they can see where we are. And we are running around with loaded guns and shooting. It's worth a little bit of safety, even for that.
Absolutely.
So.
In my end, I was the guy behind the camera in those videos. It was helpful for me just to be like, oh, okay, that's David. I know exactly where he is. So there are times where having a light designator, whether it's IR or color, can be very helpful and very useful. So something to look into. So, and then moving forward, what else you got up here? I see you got...
I've got a little Princeton Tech. I believe they call this the Switch or something like that. It's something small. It's specifically designed for helmets.
We'll paste the name in front of them.
There we go. It's hard to keep all the names straight.
There's
I tried.
so many acronyms.
This does use kind of like a system where you can swivel this off, so you can have mounts on a bunch of different stuff and bouncing around.
But what is it? It's just a little light?
But yeah, so it's a very basic light. It's got kind of the arm that you can crane around to get different angles for where you need to see. I generally have it just solely for red lens. It has a white lens on it, but realistically, if you take a kind of administrative pause or something, cool. But to me, if I need to read something or something, I can pop a red lens real quick. It's not going to give away position as well. It's not going to kill your natural night vision as much.
That's a huge one.
I know some guys love running Surefires on there. I've had this discussion with pistol lights. I don't like super bright ones because you blind yourself off the wall pretty easy. I don't like super bright stuff even in an administrative situation for that, because it's going to be up close. You're not running a light on here to see really far away. That's not really
that's
the
what the night
idea.
vision's for.
Exactly. So I don't need anything powerful here. I don't do an IR one because I'm not going to read anything under IR. I've got a built-in one here. I've got an IR device on my rifle. Like there's other avenues for that. So this is really more like site exploitation, administrative stuff,
Maybe
reading
reloading
maps, mags and stuff too. Yeah, absolutely. Or like I said, any kind of tactical pause or something if you don't want to kill that natural night vision. So.
Right. Well, I think that's a huge one. That is something I'm needing to put on mine. I used to run on my plate carrier, but I used to have a headlamp that I would just only ever use the red light feature, kind of the same concept. But now that I don't have that, I actually would like to get just a red light because it was helpful. Even when we were out doing a lot of night vision drills, or even white light drills, you'd approach the target, you wouldn't really want to blind yourself by using a white light.
Right.
And even just clicking a white light on and getting that reflection, that bounce off of a cardboard target, is enough to mess with your natural eyes night vision.
Oh yeah, yeah, no.
And it can set you back a couple minutes. It's just obnoxious. So having just a very simple red light is very useful for just basic target marking, like you said.
Yeah.
Reading a map, sometimes loading mags, just doing stuff back at the truck that's not going to just totally ruin your eye's natural.
Find your staple gun.
Yeah,
your
exactly.
targets. Yeah.
Just
Little
your
stuff.
basic
Yeah.
stuff where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, I don't want to be totally blinded in my night eye because we're both running 14s.
Right.
So it's a useful little tool to have, whether it's just a little headlamp, something like that. Definitely a useful tool
and even
to
if you
have
don't
in the
attach it to the helmet, I mean, even if you just, like you said, you had a headlamp that you could keep on you or something, like having that ability is nice. It doesn't have to be up here, but to me, it's just easier.
I agree. I think
I
up there
want
is
to have
a clean
one
way to
when
go.
I'm doing that stuff. And
it's always with your helmet.
and it weighs nothing.
Yeah.
So you pick that up, you don't really even realize there's something there. It's light. So
Awesome. Well, then moving forward, what else you got going on there?
okay, so and then up front, I have this is a PVS 14. It's a Gen 3 white phosphor. This one uses an L3 intensifier tube, but it was built by TNVC, which is something they offer. We carry their stuff. We carry the full L3s, but we also carry these. It's a less expensive way to do it, but you're getting the functional unit inside is the intensifier tube. You're still getting that from L3, which is kind of the industry standard, right? Kind of the cream of the crop on that stuff, at least right now. That being said, L3 does hold back their best tubes, specifically for their fully built units. But you're getting a very, very nice intensifier tube still, even when they sell them off to people like this to do it.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you mentioned we have these, and this is shameless plug time. With it is we are a store. If a customer was to come in to the shop and is wanting to purchase night vision,
yes,
we will more or less let them kind of look through.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and pick the tube they want. That way, they're getting exactly
correct. Yeah,
like the best of what we have for their needs.
Yeah, and I mean, all of the tubes come with data sheets, so you can look it over, see all the specs and everything. If you don't have some kind of crazy nuclear degree or something, you probably won't understand it, but you might.
I don't think even the guys who write them know what they're talking about.
Exactly. But I mean, even if you do understand it, there still might be some variants there that you just can't depict on paper. Right. But yeah, we have a room we can get awfully dark that we close and lock up when people want to look through it. We've got illuminators and lasers in there, so you can kind of see how that works. But no, absolutely. If you want to go through, I mean, you can handpick your tube from what we've got. We got no issue with that. So,
well, it's a big investment, and we want to make sure that you as a customer are getting kind of that or an experience that a lot of people can't offer by picking your own tube. I mean, buying online is awesome, but sometimes that downside is you don't necessarily know exactly what you're going to get. Right. There are some companies, to their credit, they are working towards allowing customers to kind of have an idea, a better understanding. But we have the advantage in as much that people can come here and we'll let you look through them and kind of have a good time doing so.
Right, if you're a U.S. citizen.
Yes,
by law.
By law, that's
by law. You have to be a U.S. citizen, but then we can show it.
Yep, that's right.
One caveat there.
Yes, thank you for mentioning the ITAR. But
yeah, but yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, for me, I'd used night vision a fair amount before. Issued stuff. Just Gen 3, just like this is, but it was green. That's all I knew. I knew I wanted to get in some. Did a bunch of research, try to figure out what I wanted. I fell on wanting white instead of green. But from there, it was shot in the dark. Yeah, I ordered from TNVC. Had to wait quite a while, and then finally got it. And it was at that point, it's luck of the draw. What do you get? Yeah, there was no selection process. So. They've been great. I was fortunate, got a good one. There's a blim where maybe I wouldn't have, hence like this, it was next to another with where it is, but it's not a problem. But yeah, we do offer that, so it makes that a little bit easier.
That's awesome.
Which is cool.
Cost aside, did you go with a 14 over a 31 because of training? Was it more of a cost thing, a little bit of both?
I'll be honest, the main thing was cost.
Okay, yeah.
I had never used 31s, so it's not like I was predisposed to them or something. This is what I was most familiar with, so it made sense in that front. But 31s.
Yeah.
Feel pretty confident I was going to like them. So
Yeah.
if it was in the budget, I would have done it. I like that I have a 14. Eventually, I will get 31s at some point when I can justify it to myself.
Sure.
But when that happens, I'm not going to sell this off. It's a nice option to have. It's a much lighter weight option. There are benefits to both. There's a lot of info out there about that, but
Without getting too into the weeds, there are some pros and cons to both systems.
Absolutely.
I think whether it's in the budget or not, the argument can almost be made that a 14 in some situations can be more advantageous.
In some
than a
ways,
31.
Absolutely.
So that being said, the reason I even pointed that out was not to put you on the spot or anything, but more just because I think there's a lot of guys who are looking into the night vision world and get a little overwhelmed by the costs, because unfortunately there is not a way to go about this. Like when it comes to the actual device itself, there's no cheap way to do it.
No.
It is something that's going to be a little bit of an investment, something you got to save up for. But if somebody's watching this and they're thinking, man, I really want to do it, but I just can't justify getting duals, then don't get a single.
Seriously,
you can really do a lot of work with a single.
Well, and there's military aspect, right? I mean, there's guys run both, of course. We all know that.
Right.
But the vast majority are running singles.
Right.
And it obviously works quite well.
Right.
One might be better, but not everyone can get it, and it's still very effective.
Right. Absolutely.
So it's don't feel like you're in trouble if you can't get duals. That's
right.
That's taking it a bit too far.
I agree.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And same margin. I love the white phosphor. To me, it's a ton clearer than the green as far as definition, and it being a more natural color palette to me than green and black. I don't get headaches as fast.
Right.
Maybe that might be unique to me. I don't know, but for me, I don't get headaches as fast, which is really nice. Not as much eye strain.
Nice. Yeah.
But get a Gen 3 green before you get a Gen 2 white.
Yes, yes, by all means.
Gen 3 is the current level. There's nothing above that. You'll see marketing for higher, but that's what it is.
Right.
There is a big difference between those two.
There is. And
stick to the Gen first.
I've dabbled with the idea of going with a Gen 1 or Gen 2. If you even look through those and then look at a Gen 3, it's not worth it. And it's like going back and watching old analog TV versus anything new. The clarity is so much better. The depth and perception, just the depth of the colors you get from a Gen 3, which translates in your brain to being able to move around a lot better, is so much better. It's worth saving a little bit more, getting the Gen 3, whether it's green or white. Just do it. Don't waste your time on the Gen 2s. There are other ways you can get away with saving some dollars here and there,
right?
But don't skimp on that. That's one of those things, like the amp arms we mentioned before. There are certain parts of these setups that you just can't really avoid. Yeah, it's just worth saving up and getting the better one. You're going to be so much happier that you did.
Well, and the other part too is, there's a lot of people with a lot of things, not just gun stuff, but a lot of people with a lot of things where you're not sure. You don't know, is this something you want to get into, something you want to do. So you don't want to go in really expensive. You want to kind of start on the shallow end, kind of work your way in, make sure it's what you like. The caveat to that being night vision in particular, used night vision is hard to move.
Yes.
Because it is inherently very sensitive and can be damaged fairly easily with lighting if you don't take care of it. There are a lot of people who just will not touch used stuff. Right. Which then is going to kill the value on it, secondhand market. That's not to say you can't sell it. That doesn't mean you can't get some money back, but it's going to take a lot longer to move, and you're not going to get anywhere near as much as you would on maybe like a nice camera or something that potentially, it's, if you're going into it thinking you're going to get most of your money back to then upgrade, I would kind of advise that maybe that's not the real scenario here with the way the market's going at the moment.
Correct. Especially with it getting more and more competitive to get, you can get good units fairly affordable relative to what they were a few years ago.
Right.
You can get some good quality items. So to what you're saying, it's like it is one of those things where it's like you don't really know what you're getting, especially more so from a secondhand market. You don't know if that guy dropped it into water or something.
Well, yeah,
or just abused it. I mean, maybe the water's not a big deal, but
Yeah. Well, and I've seen horror stories too where people will do that and then find out it's not a real like they bought a housing and
Yeah.
put like a weight in it and closed it up, and
Yeah.
you know, it's not
Some
really
kind of
anything.
airsoft like digital
Yeah, and then
thing
by the
or
time
other.
it gets there, it's a little late. They ghost you, and
Right.
you know, it's not to say that it's what's going to happen, but
Right.
it's a risk. So.
It is. Anything else you want to hit on your helmet specifically?
I guess the last thing for me, because I try not to put too much on there, is just the mounting system for your nods.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of the Wilcox G24. It is a very robust system. It does lock in extremely well. It does have a magnetic breakaway feature, so you kind of get that positive magnetic engagement. But you can put it into like kind of a setting where it wants to break free if you get too much torque on it. Now that's there so that if you snag it or whatever, you don't break your neck or your unit. This comes off, which is kind of nice. You can kind of turn that off, click that down, the bar comes out.
Awesome.
It's a better engagement. So that part's pretty nice. It also does lock up and down, so you can't drop it, push the button in, drops right down. It's not going to go up until you push the button again. So
Nice.
if you hit it on stuff, it's not going to kick it all cattywampus somewhere.
Nice.
Which is pretty nice. Tons of adjustability. So grab the buttons on the side, run it forward and back exactly where you need it. You can unlock the plate, move it up and down to get it aligned to your eye where you need it, and then you can change the actual angle of it by spinning this, so you get it actually collimated to your eye a little bit better. Which the more natural you can make that, the less eye fatigue, the less messes with your brain, less headaches.
Right.
It's worth spending time to get it dialed. You want it perfectly aligned to your eye and centered on it as best you can.
Right.
So love that. The other nice thing it has is it uses a dovetail J-arm. So
very nice.
most your 14s, they'll come with a military standard J-arm, which they call it the bayonet.
Yeah.
It's kind of a square post looking thing, which is what we had. But I mean, in the mount, there's still a lot of play. It'll move around just between these two interfaces. This can be rock solid, that can be rock solid. It's still gonna have play, and that kind of sucks. This being dovetailed, kind of being where it is, it grooves in really nicely. And so once it's in the mount, there's really no wiggle at all, which locks up. Now, the downside of that is that if you run a G24, it will be a dovetail, which means you also have to get a dovetail mount, which Wilcox makes one called G11 that's very similar to this. It's not quite, it doesn't have the locking adjustment up top, and I don't think it has magnetic breakaway.
I don't think it does.
I could be wrong, but I don't think it does. But that one uses the bayonet mount. So it's not, it's pretty close in price to this, but you save the cost of this. So it's total package a good bit cheaper.
Good.
But that would be another option. That's my go-to.
Awesome. So, and then kind of jumping into my helmet a little bit. My helmet's a very different helmet from David's, but maintains a lot of the similar features. Kind of like my plate carrier when we discussed last week. I built this a little bit on a budget during a time when getting the higher end name brand stuff was pretty challenging to do. I actually built this out of a bump helmet, just a standard polymer bump helmet. It's kind of a no-name one off of Amazon. My thought process behind that was I'm not expecting ballistic protection out of this. It's not, I know it's not going to stop a bullet. That's okay. But the original, Delta guys were running around with ProTac skateboard helmets. I figured if they could do it, this will be fine.
There you go.
That being said, this helmet looks drastically different from when I got it initially. There's a lot of things I swapped out on here to, build it out, to make it more suitable for night vision use. A couple of the big notable things right away was, and I'll just kind of, right out of the gate, the padding immediately. The stuff that was in here before out of the box was terrible. Just caused the worst hot spots you could ever imagine. So I immediately, after like one night of going out there with the guys, doing some training, pulled the standard padding out and bought the 4D tactical pads. It's a memory foam, kind of micro foam. I think it's like a non-bacterial foam. Very soft, very squishy, very, very, very comfortable.
Awesome pads.
Highly recommend. If you have already kind of gone down this road and bought a cheaper helmet, or even a higher end helmet, guys, these pads are awesome.
Yeah, because just being higher end does not guarantee quality pads.
Right. These are worth every penny. I would say the only potential downside is when I've been out there in the cold during the winter. Because it is a memory foam, it gets hard.
Yeah.
But put it on your head, give it a couple minutes to warm up, it conforms just fine.
Settle in a little bit.
Yeah, but just be aware of that when you first put it on, if your helmet feels suddenly too small, loosen up your dial in the back. It'll conform pretty quick. So just give it a minute. But yeah, for pretty much all times of the year, it's been great. As I mentioned before, I do have the actual OpsCore amp arms. These are worth every penny. Don't skip out on those. They're awesome. They really do a fantastic job of keeping the ear pro pressed up against your ear, which, I mean, yeah, if you're shooting with a suppressor and stuff, if you have a gap, that's not as big a deal, but you're here, you only get one set of ears, protect them. Yeah. I paired those up to some Peltors. I think these were the Contact 5s, if I'm not mistaken. They do have the boom mic, and a down lead, which will connect to my PTT on my plate carrier. Again, I'm not a cool guy. I just like to LARP around in the desert with my buddies. And the reality is, it has just been more useful when we're setting up the range, just being able to communicate.
Hey, whatever works.
Or, just talk smack on each other when we fumble a reload or something. But it's awesome. Pair that up with some good gel cups. Very, very comfortable. Doing that has been hugely, helpful, having just that kind of stuff on there. The other big modification I made to this helmet from when I got it, from the Amazon cart, I could say, was I did replace the standard mount, which felt very flimsy, with a real Wilcox mount.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Ironically, the Wilcox mount I put on this was about the cost of the entire helmet. But my thought process behind that is, that is the part that's going to interface. It's going to keep my night vision on my head. I don't want that snapping off. You could probably get away with the cheap one that it came with for a while. Yeah. But you do stuff in the cold, plastics get brittle. I didn't have a lot of confidence in the polymer mount that this helmet initially came with, so I went ahead and upgraded that just for that peace of mind.
Especially when you're spending thousands of dollars, it's not something you want to necessarily punt around.
Yeah, exactly. I figured it was worth that extra little investment. From there, taking it kind of the back of the helmet, I do have the Tomahawk counterweight set up. It just Velcros on. I did make some little tabs. I got kind of crafty with some Kydex and bolt that in, kind of similar to the way David's got his.
How OpsCore does theirs.
Yeah, exactly. I looked at some images on theirs and thought that was brilliant. Kind of just got crafty with the Dremel, made my own, and it works fine. Looks kind of ghetto, but it's holding on. And then I carry just some extra batteries, some counterweights in here, and it's done very, very well for kind of a budget-esque helmet. Mm-hmm. Budget being, big air quotes around that, because at the end of the day, it cost me almost as much as the polymer OpsCore helmet.
Gotcha.
So it's all relative. Yeah. It's like I might have saved a little bit in the upfront, but in the back end, having to go through and piece all the individual parts together and doing so in a way that's coherent and actually works. Mm-hmm. I don't know that it actually ended up really saving that much money. Gotcha. I enjoyed the process of doing it just because I like to kind of tinker with this type of stuff. That way also, if I have friends who are trying to get into this, I can kind of help give advice of like, hey, you know what? This might help you here and there. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed doing it. I don't regret it, but kind of like my plate carrier, there are probably easier ways to do it, get into it. Now, as you can see, currently I don't have night vision on here, which is okay. That's something I'm working towards getting. But the reason I have the helmet is because obviously I'm going to need a helmet for when I actually have night vision, but because I also wanted to take classes and run through some courses with guys, get that training. I was very fortunate in as much to get to do a lot of training with some guys here in town who had night vision units that I could use at the time. And instead of sweating into one of their loaner helmets, I figured I'll just go ahead and build my own, use their night vision equipment. And I'm really glad I did. I was able to really get the helmet tailored for myself, and I can still wear this if I'm out like riding in the side-by-sides or whatever. It's a good helmet just to have. Again, it's not ballistic, but I'm glad I have it.
Well, and where we live too, I mean, even if you're just out messing around, even during the day, you're gonna have ear pro one way or another.
Yes.
Having that on there, carry your ear pro. Around here, there's tons of rocks everywhere. It wouldn't be that weird for you to fall down, bust your head on something. Having some bump protection's not a bad thing. Yeah. Well,
especially like
that's a pretty normal scenario around here. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, so highly recommend that even if you're wanting to get into night vision and you're kind of looking for a good place to start, start building out your helmet.
Yeah.
Because you can go take some classes. A lot of them offer loaner night vision sets that you can rent from the courses. I know Greenline does that. The guys here in town, the Blackout guys, will do that. So it doesn't hurt to have your own helmet set up in the meantime while you're saving up to get yourself a good quality set of night vision.
Right. And the other kind of, I guess I think to a lot of people probably weird, the prevalence of night vision nowadays is it's a lot greater than you would imagine. It's crazy how many people have gotten into it in the last few years, to the point that, I mean, hey, build out a helmet, you might find out your neighbor's got night vision, you had no clue. You very well might know some people that have some that will let you borrow it every now and then or something like that too. So and they have non-helmet options for mounting your nods, the skull crusher things, and they work, but not great, and they're not. Most of them aren't that cheap. So you're pretty close to a helmet anyway. Yeah. So you're going to need it at one point before you can really use your nods anyway. So
they'll start building it out. So, so those are kind of just our helmet setups. Now, a lot of what you see here, we offer here at the shop, whether it's from like the actual ear pro itself, the lights, the amp arms. So if you have any questions on how to get your helmet set up, we're happy to, again, take the time, really spend an hour or so with you, helping you part these things together. Because I think we would agree, it can get a little overwhelming when you start looking at all the different pieces, what connects to what. And there's a ton of info out there, the internet and stuff, so it's not always good info. Right.
But there's also a lot where they don't necessarily go into enough detail to know what works together. Because not every piece will, and so figuring some of that out too is more of a struggle sometimes. But
right. So if you have any of those questions, don't hesitate at all to come by the shop, call us. We've mentioned it in the past. Feel free to reach out to us, whether it's through email, through any of our social media channels. Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of those. We've got them all. We're happy to help answer any questions that we can, and really spend that time with you, making sure that you get the setup that you need and that you're comfortable with the purchases that you're making. Anything else you want to add? Any dad advice before we kind of sign off? Put you on the spot there.
I guess my biggest thing, because I know we're probably going to get questions about it, is ballistic or not ballistic. I don't think we've touched on it yet.
We haven't.
But you'll notice neither of us have ballistic helmets. If you look at our site, we don't have ballistic helmets. For the military, that's very much a thing. The way the material is made, it has a half-life. I mean, you're going to have to, even if it sits in a closet, you're going to have to replace it every few years. They're noticeably, the carbon's expensive. It's significantly more to go to ballistic. It's also a ton heavier. Which, again, getting back to weight, that jacks your neck up pretty good. And then the flip side of that is, yes, they're ballistically rated, but they mainly handgun rounds, and there's a lot of deformation that typically happens. Good chance of some pretty serious TBIs and stuff like that. Really, the best situation for it, actually being functional and moving forward, is going to be like shrapnel and stuff. Civilians don't see a whole lot of shrapnel. So I don't see a whole lot of use for it. I know people are going to disagree with me on some of that, but it is what it is. Obviously, you don't want to take a handgun round to the head, but also don't want to be a vegetable. So well, that's something. There's a little bit of both going on. You got pros and cons.
Absolutely. So, well, that's something to consider. Like you were saying, obviously we both chose bump helmets for a reason. Mine was, I'd say more so than the cost. Like you said, it was the weight thing. I just really didn't want to be lugging around that much weight on my neck right now, especially where at the time when I built this out, I was doing a lot of night vision training. I think a lot more than the average guy, where we were going out a few times a week. And I just didn't want to have that kind of strain on my neck for that kind of stuff. I could see maybe having a ballistic helmet, if you've got the funds for it, having one in the arsenal to pull from. But I think for the overwhelming majority of the guys who are going to be buying night vision, who are going to be enjoying this kind of next level of shooting, a bump helmet is awesomely sufficient. Protects your noggin from, like I said, like by the name, from bumps. But yeah, you'll be fine. I think most guys' cases having just a
Yeah,
quality bump helmet's going to be.
You're talking about very, very, very small subsection in civilian scenarios where that might be beneficial.
Right.
And then you've got all the time that you're wearing it where you've got serious detriment. Same argument with like side sappies and stuff like that, right? I mean, it's not, same answer is not right for everybody. Everyone's got to make their own decision. Just make an educated one. But, you know, do what you want.
Yeah.
I like my neck not any more damage than it already is. So.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, guys, if you have any questions, we'll go ahead and kind of wrap this one up. We'll probably keep doing these gear videos. If you like them, let us know. If you like kind of what you're seeing with this type of content, let us know down in the comment section. It really helps us kind of determine what it is that you guys want us to bring to you. You know, if you feel like we're worth it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Maybe give us a like. It does help us out quite a bit, especially as we're trying to grow the channel and the platforms. But yeah, if you have any questions, again, always feel free to reach out. And until next week, we'll see you later, and God bless.
Take care.
Cool.